Kaiir Elam has been one of the best players during Dallas Cowboys offseason workouts. How is that happening, and what does it mean for the defense? We'll break it down next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. You can also check me out over on the Locked On Dynasty Football podcast. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. And we are breaking down the Dallas Cowboys full practice from Minicamp. It's their last full practice of the offseason before we get to training camp. And Landon, we got some pretty good news coming out of the training camp, Minicamp, that Kaiir Elam, the Cowboys cornerback that they traded from the Buffalo Bills this offseason, is having a pretty strong offseason.
I mean, we'll stop talking about Kaiir Elam when he stops making plays in these camps, right? That's the thing, right? We've discussed the idea of, and shout out to Sigmund Bloom for the drum beat, right? Like the idea of the consistency of hearing the same name over and over again and paying attention to that, because that consistency is the kind of the most important thing when you come to flashes, right? Consistently flashing, right? Mm-hmm. And for Kaiir Elam, I mean, I'm pretty sure that this is correct. Every single open media day that there's been a practice so far, he's had a pass deflection.
Yes.
So it's, again, the day that he stops having pass deflections and making plays is the day we'll stop talking about how he's having a great camp. But yeah, I mean, obviously this is fantastic news and a fantastic trajectory for a guy that the Cowboys would really love to work out. I mean, you don't necessarily needing him to be a full-time long-term starter, but if he can continue to play his way into a guy that they can't take off the field, I'm certainly not going to be mad about it.
So let's play this out for a second. Let's say that this strong offseason OTAs mini camps continues through training camp and into the season, and let's say he turns into, again, the expectations aren't super high, let's say a slightly above average cornerback, like somebody you feel good about on the outside. No, he's not going to be a Pro Bowler. He's not going to be an All-Pro, but just somebody that you feel very solid about.
Chidobe Awuzie. Remember Chidobe Awuzie?
Perfect. There you go. Exactly. How big of an impact could that mean for the Cowboys defense moving forward?
Well, I mean, it would be huge. I mean, look, I think there's a dearth of those types of players in the NFL. It feels like at the cornerback position, right? Like there's superstars, and then there's guys who are very scheme specific that can fit into certain situations and be comfortable, and then there's guys that you're constantly trying to replace, right? I think if Elam could fit into that second category where, yeah, he could give you starter quality, average NFL cornerback play when you put him into a scheme that works with what he does. I think, yeah, especially considering the fact that all the other depth that you already have at the position, for him to be potentially an available, knock on wood, healthy corner going into training camp, who could potentially, has started in the NFL before, and maybe is playing some of his best football in his very young career. That would obviously be a huge relief to the injury aspect for Ravel and for Diggs, which we'll talk about Diggs here in a second. Maybe got some good news there. But I think beyond that too, even when they come back, you can just never have enough good corners, right? And especially when they spread you out, you can outplay them then. But injuries happen, and it's a very long season. So even once everybody's at full health, if that even happens, you just never know how that in the NFL. Kaiir Elam will have value on this team if he's a, average NFL corner, just because, again, you're going to play all these guys.
I want to mention again, Elam turned 24 years old in May. So this is a extremely young player. I'm pretty sure he's younger than Savon Ravel, who the Cowboys just drafted in the 3rd round. And you mentioned that he's played in a lot of games. Not only has he played in a lot of games, he's played in a lot of big games, playoff games, AFC championship games. Now, I know he struggled in that Chiefs game, but that's not his first AFC Championship game appearance. Like, he's played in a lot of big time, games. I don't think, in going back to college, I don't think he's going to be frustrated or look overwhelmed because he's playing on like Monday Night Football in Week 4. It's not going to be a big deal for him.
Yeah, this isn't a guy that's like, going to come in and be saucer-eyed, right? Like, he's not going to be dumbstruck by anything he's going to see early in the season. Maybe, the way that the team is covered versus how it's covered in Buffalo. But I think as far as, the bright lights and the big game, like, this is an NFL starting cornerback who's, like you said, played multiple championship games, lots of playoff experience. This is a guy that has skin on the wall. And I think, again, all of these guys, even the great ones at times, they get beat up on the field. It's extremely tough. These guys are the best in the world. So, there's no shame necessarily in being the whack-a-mole in an AFC conference game where you've got one of the best quarterbacks in the world you're facing of all time, right? So I think, like, there's a huge difference between a quality starter guy who got beat up in a high viewership game versus a guy that isn't good enough to be rosterable, and somewhere closer to that first part, that's where Elam is, and I think that's where we need to recognize Cowboys may have gotten something in this.
We did get some news on Trevon Diggs. Trevon Diggs showed up to minicamp practices. He's obviously not participating. He's with the rehab group, but he said to the media today that his goal is to be ready by week 1. He feels like that's a realistic goal. Players are always a little too optimistic when it comes to getting back to the field. But the fact that he's saying week 1 and not like Halloween or Thanksgiving does make me feel better.
I think that's what I took away too, is that maybe even if he's just shooting for the stars, and landing on the moon, as they say, or whatever, I think, the truth is that even if he's missing the mark by a couple weeks, that's good news, right? Like, I think that if he's shooting for that, then that's even a goal that makes you feel like the realistic goal is still a very good timeline for what you were expecting, right? And you and I were talking over before the show, and you brought up a good point. I mean, there's a high probability that he still probably ends up on PUP just for the sake of making sure he's rested and in shape for the season. But even if that's the case and you're not forced to put him on PUP, I think that's the real difference. Like, if he's like, if he's able to be cleared before the season, but you still keep him on PUP just to kind of, keep yourself safe, exercise the roster bonus that you get to maybe carry an extra player when it comes down to that time, right? Then I think you feel a lot better about him coming off of PUP and being ready to play, as opposed to a guy who, he wasn't ready to go week 1, so we obviously needed to keep him on PUP. And there's like 2 to 3 weeks of kind of readjusting that he may not have to go through if he's healthy enough week 1, but remaining on PUP to kind of get into shape.
Yeah, so I believe PUP, I think you missed the first 4 games. I know for a while they experimented with 3 games, but maybe you put him on the PUP list to open the year, and that just gives him another month to get the conditioning right. Like, he might be fully recovered from the injury, but it takes a while to get into football shape. Now, I believe you are allowed to practice at least a little bit when you're on PUP. If he misses the first 4 games of the season, he would be eligible to come back in the week 5 game against the Jets. That's October 5th. I mean, that's 4 months from now, essentially. I would have to believe 4 months from now is going to make a massive difference where Diggs is at health-wise. And if Elam continues to take a step up, Diggs is healthy, Bland's playing the slot, we'll see what happens with like Ravel and Josh Butler. But maybe you actually have a pretty decent cornerback room going into the second half of the season.
And real quick, I think, just people probably doing the math here, and they're saying October 5th, man, that's not even a month earlier than we thought that he was coming back. But again, I point out, like, in that timeline in which he's coming back on, a late October that we thought, that was him just getting cleared to come back October 3rd. In this scenario, we're thinking there's a potential that he could be cleared to get off, or he could be ready to be back on the field, but they're being overly cautious. And so that he's actually not having to also acclimate to NFL speed for 2 or 3 weeks.
All right, let's talk about a Cowboys rookie who is standing out during minicamp practices. We'll tell you who that is next. This episode is brought to you by Skylight Calendars. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans in the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders in all one easy to see place. My family is always on the move. We've got T-ball, we've got school events. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. But Skylight Calendars has helped us calm everything down. It makes it so easy to visualize what we have going on every single day. And right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their first 15-inch calendar by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is skylightcal.com/NFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Lena, let's discuss a rookie who is standing out during minicamp practices, and that's Donovan Ezeiruaku, the Cowboys' second-round pick from Boston College. Now, according to multiple people who were at practice, he looked really good. I think it was Nick Harris that said, off the record, the Cowboys people that he's talked to have been just stunned by how explosive and dynamic he's looked. What do you make about all the positive news from Donovan Ezeiruaku?
Well, first off, shout out to our guy John Owning for just nailing it again, right?
Yeah.
Just absolutely calling this. And second of all, it's incredible. Like it really is. Like again, the combination of this Elam and Ezeiruaku news, like that couldn't be more positive for what the Cowboys defense really needs, right? Like the two of the positions in which you really need to be deep, right? Are cornerback and defensive end. And if they can get, anything as a, pass rusher out of Donovan Ezeiruaku, like coming into this season, I understand he's a second round pick. You're taking him for the long term because, and I think this is showing, you think that he could develop into a double digit sack guy without a doubt, right? He just has the skill set. He's got the mindset. It's clear. And I think, that's what you're seeing is maybe he's on a timeline that can get him in a productive, rotation, part of a productive rotation earlier than you had hoped. And I think that's the benefit of going out and getting a Dante Fowler and having Sam Williams come back and having Nealon come back is that you're not having to rely on him, so you can use him as much as he's comfortable. And if he kind of hits a rookie wall, or if it's becoming too much, you can peel it back a little bit. You've got plenty of other guys that you can rotate in there. But I just want to point out one other thing that was interesting about Ezeiruaku that got brought up yesterday was Micah Parsons gave an interview in the locker room, and he talked about how he was so excited with Ezeiruaku, first of all, just because of the way he's playing, but also how he Ezeiruaku prefers to play on the right side. And apparently Micah prefers to play on the left side. And it's funny because we actually pulled some numbers here, and it does look like, that he is winning at a higher rate and pass rushing on the left side, and apparently took more pass rushing snaps on the left side than the right side, which was interesting to me. So and it has to do with the fact that Micah prefers to play with his right hand. I just think that this is, an opportunity for a guy to, he doesn't have a lot that's being put upon him. He's not being, forced into necessarily a starting role where they're asking him to produce right away. He can have a long runway, but he's not doing that. He's fully, forcing the issue. He wants to play right away. He's, putting out there that, and it's showing that he belongs, obviously, with the physical traits that he brings in. And just thinking about this pass rush that allows you to put like a Fowler and a Ezeiruaku on either side, and then just line up Micah Parsons wherever you like. That seems pretty scary, and that's the kind of thing that you need to have a really good defense.
I'm not surprised that Ezeiruaku is having a good minicamp because
No.
it's designed for him to have a good minicamp, right? Like he's an undersized, explosive, speedy, bendy edge rusher. Like this is where these guys should show up. But I also just think he's a really good player. Like I thought he was one of the top 20 players in this draft. That's why I was so happy when the Cowboys stole him in the second round. So all of this is just confirming my priors, which is great. Like this is what we do here during the summer. But there's another part of it that honestly, I think is even more telling. And that is that Ezeiruaku is on the field during rookie minicamp, participating, doing everything the coaches ask of him without a contract. Almost none of the second round picks in this class have signed because they're all working on like guaranteed language. So you're seeing a lot of players just sit out minicamp because they don't have a deal. We're seeing first round picks like Shamar Stewart with the Cincinnati Bengals. He doesn't have a contract yet. He's sitting out all practices and drills. The fact that Ezeiruaku is like, no, I got to be on the field practicing, getting better. I think we already know he's a high character player, but you're seeing that play out on the field.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Stewart thing is wild. I can't believe the Bengals are doing that to him. But yes, the fact that Easy's out there, despite the fact that almost all the other second rounders are also going through the same kind of contract thing, and a lot of them are not on the field. I think it shows you the kind of commitment this guy has. And I think again, the Cowboys were drafting these types of guys, right? Like they were targeting these types of high character guys who love football. So,
and the other thing we should mention is that it's probably hard for Ezeiruaku not to do anything when he sees Michael Parsons, who's, I don't want to say holding in, but kind of holding in, right? And then Mikey just gets so itchy to go out there and do something that he puts on his helmet. And now he's going through the drills. And he did it a couple times with Ezeiruaku after they didn't do it right the first time. So there is a competitiveness in that edge rushing room that I think starts with Micah, and you're starting to see it kind of trickle down to all the other players. That's how you develop an elite unit.
Well, yeah. What did we talk about with the culture, right? And Michael Irvin's comments about what his feelings were with the Schottenheimer regime and what they've instilled in this team. This is just more of that, right? This is just more of the team buying into a culture of competitiveness, of getting out there and working hard. And like you said, Micah's standing there, at the advice of his agent, standing on the sideline to not work out. What does he do? He goes and finds the training room guy and said, "Hey, bring me a helmet so I can work out." It's great that all these guys are wired like this. And I think we're learning more and more. We're seeing now more and more, like, why does that kind of culture matter? Because it forces guys like this to continue to go out and work hard because there's no excuse not to work hard.
Yeah. Also, Micah was helping with one of the tents that blew away during Tuesday's practice. So
safety officer Micah Parsons as well, right?
Doing whatever he can to make the team better. All right, let's talk about an interesting tight end battle that we thought could potentially happen this offseason, but not between these two players. Let's talk about Jake Ferguson and Brevin Spann-Ford next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action, and FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. You guys know that I'm backing the Oklahoma City Thunder, been backing them all season long. I think they're going to win the NBA championship. Go check out the series lines. Go check out the MVP odds as well. It's all available over on FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. And make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. As training camps get closer and moves are being made, hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Just want to let everybody know on Friday's show, Layden and I are going to do a special minicamp show on the players that we just haven't heard much buzz about. Does that mean they're not performing well? Does that mean they're maybe falling down in the depth chart? So make sure you guys are getting ready for that. But let's finish this show up, Layden, by talking about a positional battle. Jake Ferguson versus Brevin Spann-Ford for tight end 1. Something I didn't see coming at all, but sure sounds like Brevin Spann-Ford had another strong day. He was working with the ones yet again. How realistic do you think it is that Brevin Spann-Ford could win this job?
I think what's more realistic is the kind of scenario that you and I had discussed. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I think, where instead of Jake Ferguson being tight end 1 and everyone being tight end 2 and tight end 3, they just have a tight end by committee, and they rotate the guys in as they need them, because it's similar to running back in the way that they have differing skill sets, right? Like Ferguson is very clearly a receiving tight end and he's very good at it, and Brevin Spann-Ford is very clearly a blocking tight end and he's very good at it. So you kind of use them as you need to use them inside the scheme. And
I was going to ask you this: what if Brevin Spann-Ford is a much better receiver than Jake Ferguson is as a blocker? Then do we start to see the roles maybe shift a little bit and Spann-Ford ends up becoming the guy that plays a majority of the snaps?
I think that that's possible. I think it could also be game plan specific. I also think that it could be a little more moot than we think it is, because they may be playing a lot of 2 tight end offense this year. So they both could be playing on the field a whole bunch. So it could fall somewhere in between. But I think, the idea that we are without a doubt going into the season and especially going into training camp, knowing for certain that Jake Ferguson is the clear tight end 1, and that's like kind of an undisputed title, I think that is definitely fluid right now. And I don't know that it's necessarily because Jake Ferguson is bad or gotten worse or anything. I just think that, and I think this also speaks to Schoonmaker a little bit too. I just think that Brevin Spann-Ford has really, really impressed this team over the years and has continued to get better and has physical traits that the other guys just simply don't have.
He's just, I don't want to say he's a bigger body than Luke Schoonmaker, because Schoonmaker's 6'6" and 250. But Brevin Spann-Ford is like all of 6'7", 270. And there is a big difference. Like, he looks more like an offensive tackle than a tight end. And again, I think we talked about this last week. When you have a young tackle and Tyler Guyton and a Terrence Steele who still, trying to get back to that form that he was pre-injury, and you've got some young guys on the offensive line, maybe it makes sense to go with the beefier, better blocking tight end until you can kind of figure out that tight end spot, until you can figure out the offensive line.
Well, and again, I do think that they're both going to be on the field a lot at the same time. And on top of that, I'd like to go back to the size thing, because I think the size it doesn't seem like a lot in the scale of things, but I think the difference between those two sizes are the difference between an undersized defensive end and a full strong side defensive end,
Sure.
right? So I think that's what it is that they want tight ends who can down block on defensive ends. They want tight ends who can isolate with backside defensive ends at the very least, hopefully even strong side defensive ends, and win one-on-one on an occasion, not necessarily have to be part of a double in order to block a defensive end. And if they're going to require that more as they do more kind of man and gap schemes that are going to require down blocks as you have offensive linemen pulling to the outside, you're going to want a bigger body who's going to punish that defensive end when he comes down and not just give him a big shove. And so I think that's why they're pushing the Spann-Ford issue a little bit more, is because even though you're right, Schoonmaker is close, kind of the size, Fergie's still, got a ways to go. I don't know that Schoon has the kind of physicality that we've seen out of Brevin Spann-Ford too.
I'm going to ask you a question that's really hard to answer, but I want you to anyways. Who should Cowboy fans be rooting to win this tight end job? I have a hard time believing it's going to be a tight end by committee approach because almost no team does that. One of these guys is going to separate themselves from the other group, and tight end 2, tight end 3 they'll have their role, but somebody's going to play a majority of the snaps here. Who should Cowboy fans want it to be?
Let me be clear. When I say tight end by committee, I think this is who you should root for. Is I think you should root for Jake Ferguson because I do think that Jake Ferguson should get the majority of these snaps. I just think that the distance between the number of snaps he has and Brevin Spann-Ford has is smaller than usual, and I also think that there will be situations where Brevin Spann-Ford is on the field and Jake Ferguson is not on the field.
Could that just be like short yard stuff? But even then, I mean, maybe not.
Yeah,
Maybe
I mean, yeah, yes, but I think that's enough, right? That's like, I mean, scenario-based situations in which you're deploying different tight ends. I don't know that was the case before with Jake Ferguson. I think it's a better way to play. I think, especially in a run-first offense.
The reason why you want Jake Ferguson to win this job is he's just the most dynamic of the 3 tight ends in the receiving game, and he's the guy that's the best after the catch. And if he can get back to what we saw like in 2023. Now you have 3 legitimate weapons in your passing attack that you feel good about. And I think that's why Cowboy fans should be hoping it plays out that way.
Yeah, again, I still think that he's going to get a majority of the snaps. I just think that what you'll see now is when they go double tight end, that they may mix it up who's going out there. And you know, I still think that they want to get Jake Ferguson the football in the passing game, and that's a priority.
Yeah, and he had a good practice on Wednesday, just to be clear. Like, he had a nice catch down the seam. He was active. It's just that Brevin Spann-Ford continues to get more opportunities with the first team. Keep an eye on that as we get closer to training camp and closer to the regular season. That is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Check out the channel on YouTube. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You can follow Landon on Twitter at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.